and welcome back to my vlog. Tea Leaves by Francis S. Drake, part 18. I might be wrapping it up this week. There's a lot of the book left, but I don't know that I'm going to read the whole thing. Some of it's biographical stuff and some of it's the letters, although I kind of wanted to get to the letters. We'll see. Stick around and you'll find out. Anyway, those who undertook to preserve any of the poisonous herb were sharply looked after by the Patriots. A Boston paper of January 3, 1774 says, whereas it was reported that one Withington of Dorchester had taken up and partly disposed of a chest of the East India Company's tea, a number of the Cape or Narragansett Indians went to the house of Captain Ebenezer Withington and his brother Philip last Friday evening, and thoroughly searched their houses without offering the least offense to anyone. Finding no tea, they proceeded to the house of old Mr. Ebenezer Withington, at a place called Sodom, below Dorchester Meeting House, where they found part of a half chest which had floated and was cast up on Dorchester Point. This they seized and brought to Boston Common, where they committed it to the flames. Benjamin Simpson, a bricklayer's apprentice, says, after the meeting in the Old South was over, there was a cry in the gallery of every man to his tent. We repaired to the wharf. I went on board both ships, but saw no person belonging to them. In a few minutes, a number of men came on the wharf with the Indian powwow, went on board the ships, then lying at the side of the wharf, the water in the dock not more than 2 feet deep. They began to throw the tea into the water, which went off with the tide till the tea grounded. We soon found there was tea on board the brig also. A demand being made of it, the captain told us the whole of his cargo was on board, that the tea was directly under the hatches, which he would open if we would not damage anything but the tea, which was agreed to. The hatches were then opened. A man sent down to show us the tea, which we hoisted out, stove the chests, and threw the tea and all overboard. Those on board the ships did the same. I was on board the ships when the tea was so high by the side of them as to fall in, which was shoveled down more than once. We on board the brig were not disguised. I was then 19 years old. I am now, 1830, 75. Peter, the son of Benjamin Eddies, the printer, in a letter to his grandson, Benjamin C. Eddies, written in 1836, says of the tea party, I know but little about it, as I was not admitted into their presence, for fear, I suppose, of their being known. I recollect perfectly well that in the afternoon preceding the evening of the destruction of the tea, a number of gentlemen met in the parlor of my father's house. How many, I cannot say. As I said before, I was not admitted into their presence. My station was in another room, to make punch for them, in the bowl which is now in your possession, and which I filled several times. Oh, in the bowl. To make punch for them in the bowl which is now in your possession, and which I filled several times. They remained in the house till dark, I suppose to disguise themselves like Indians, when they left the house and proceeded to the wharves where the vessels lay. Before they reached there, they were joined by hundreds. I thought I would take a walk to the wharves as a spectator, where was collected, I may say, as many as 2,000 persons. The Indians worked smartly. Some were in the hold immediately after the hatches were broken open, fixing the ropes to the tea chests. Others were breaking open the chests, and others stood ready with hatchets to cut off the bindings of the chests and cast them overboard. I remained till I was tired, and fearing some disturbance might occur, went home, leaving the Indians working like good, industrious fellows. This is all I know about it. The account given by General Ebenezer Stevens to his son, Horatio Gates Stevens, is as follows. I went from the Old South Meeting House just after dark. The party was about 70 or 80. At the head of the wharf, we met the detachment of our company, Paddock's artillery, on guard, who joined us. I commenced with a party on board the vessel of which Hogden was mate, the Dartmouth. And as he knew me, I left that vessel with some of my comrades and went aboard another vessel, which lay at the opposite side of the wharf. Numbers of others took our places on board Hodgson's vessel. We commenced handing the boxes of tea on deck and first began breaking them with axes, but found much difficulty owing to the boxes of tea being covered with canvas, the mode that the article was then imported in. I think that all the tea was destroyed in about 2 hours. We were careful to prevent any being taken away. None of the party were painted as Indians, nor, that I know of, disguised, except that some of them stopped at a paint shop on the way and daubed their faces with paint. Robert Sessions of South Wilbraham, now Hampton, Mass., another actor in the scene, says, "I was living in Boston at the time, in the family of a Mr. Davis, a lumber merchant, as a common laborer. On that eventful evening, when Mr. Davis came in from the town meeting, I asked him what was to be done with the tea. 'They are now throwing it overboard,' he replied. Receiving permission, I went immediately to the spot. Everything was as light as day by the means of lamps and torches. A pin might be seen lying on the wharf. I went on board where they were at work, and took hold with my own hands. I was not one of those appointed to destroy the tea, and who disguised themselves as Indians, but was a volunteer. The disguised men being largely men of family and position in Boston, while I was a young man whose home and relations were in Connecticut. The appointed and disguised party proving too small for the quick work necessary, other young men, similarly circumstanced with myself, joined them in their labors. The chests were drawn up by a tackle, one man bringing them forward, another putting a rope around them, and others hoisting them to the deck and carrying them to the vessel's side. The chests were then opened, the tea emptied over the side, and the chests thrown overboard. Perfect regularity prevailed during the whole transaction. Although there were many people on the wharf, entire silence prevailed. No clamor, no talking. Nothing was meddled with but the teas on board. After having emptied the whole, the deck was swept clean and everything put in its proper place. An officer on board was requested to come up from the cabin and see that no damage was done except to the tea. At about the close of the scene, a man was discovered making his way through the crowd with his pockets filled with tea. He was immediately laid hold of, and his coat skirts torn off with their pockets and thrown into the dock with the rest of the tea. I was obliged to leave the town at once, as it was, of course, known that I was concerned in the affair." There we have that. More tomorrow. Make it a great day, and bye for now.